We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 164 of Dear Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast. We are back after a nice Thanksgiving holiday break, so that is pretty great. I'm Kyle Carr, one of your main hosts of the show. Joining me as always is my good friend Riley Feldman. Riley, how's it going?
I'm doing really good, Kyle, and this is a huge update for all the long-time Dear Diary listeners. This is a huge update for all the Brew Hoop podcast listeners, the listeners of the Milwaukee area basketball podcast presented by the staff of Brew Hoop. We did it, folks. My team in our rec league volleyball league, we won the title. And this is a special YouTube exclusive. For those who don't watch, you can see now I'm holding up our title shirt. I'm wearing it tonight. It says crowned MPBR champions. Doesn't even say what the sport is. You know, they ordered 10,000 of these years ago. I've just been handing them out for years. And it was a very stressful evening. Our first game of the night, it's win or go home. You get best of 3 matches, win or go home each game. We were terrible the first game. I was playing like so chaotic. My wife, who plays next to me in lineup, she was furious with me. I could see it in her eyes. She had fury in her eyes. The guy who's like our best player, he was really, really bad the first game. We went down like 16-7 in the second match. If we lose this is the end of the season. And we've been cruising on teams all year. And we dug our way out of the hole. Like something clicked. We turned it around. We whooped the other team. And you could tell the other team was really shook. They were like, oh shit. Like, no, so then we absolutely romped them in the third match for the win. And then we went on and swept in the final for the title. It was really meaningful to me because God damn it, if I spent a lot of time playing the stupid sport. So it was a great culmination of everything. And through this experience, would I say I have more insight, relative, more insight than some athletes as to what it means to be a winner? Yes, I would say so. But we can get into that later in the podcast. So I'm doing good, even a week later, riding high, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
I was going to say, the shirt does remind me, Eau Claire had this where for their intramurals, they had a champion, and it was the same shirt. It was just it was the same shirt and the same pattern. It was just a different color every time. So, and you can always tell like what season it was, whether it was like the first half of the semester or the second half. So I do get the ordering a bunch of shirts just for no reason. But joining us is also our current site overlord, Van. How's it going?
It's going all right. I've got a bunch of questions for Riley. I don't know if we want to get into it on the podcast, but
if it's volleyball related, you got to ask. Yes.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, like, well, okay. Kyle and I are both former high school volleyball stars, and I use that term pretty liberally. So we're qualified to talk with you about this. Are you a back row? Are you a back row guy, or are you a DS?
I'm a 6 position player because we don't have positions in our league.
Gotcha.
We are a C-level beginner league.
Yeah.
If you ask me about a 4-2 or a whatever, is it a 3-3 or a 4-2?
Well, you got
5-1, 4-2.
You got 5-2. You got 5-1. You got 6-2, which is what the Badger basketball or Badger women's volleyball
6-2 is Badger volleyball.
Yeah.
4-2 is probably the most common.
4-2 is what we always ran, which is that's a pretty typical like high school volleyball setup. I don't know. Would you say you're the Wisconsin Badgers women's volleyball team of that league? Because it sounds like you are.
How many they have titles, right? If they have titles, then yes.
They do have a title.
They got their first years ago, going for their second.
All right.
They're in the Sweet 16.
I'm very pleased to be sharing in their company, the company of winners. So that's what I know about volleyball, is that I'm a winner. As of a week ago, I am a winner.
And you have the shirt to prove it. That just reminds me of like the whole crown thing. It reminds me of baseball. Like in MLB, like they print off T-shirts just for, you win the division, you win the wild card, whatever. Even if they win, I think even if they like win a round in the playoffs, like, and now there are even more rounds in the playoffs, they'll give the players like moving on shirts. but usually they'll say something like really kind of, they used to say something kind of cringy on them. Like I remember one year, like the Brewers won and it just said defend MKE or represent the NL Central. I'm like, who thought of that? So your
I do
crown
remember
thing
the
reminds me
Defend
of that.
MKE shirts. Yes, I do remember
What
that.
was that? Like, oh, defend the airport. Yes, defend the airport. Mm-hmm.
Hey, General Mitchell International Airport is a goddamn treasure. All right.
It's a good airport. It's a good airport. Shout out to Midwest Express. Here,
R.I.P.
I got
Another
a little
YouTube
Midwest
exclusive.
I got a little Midwest
R.I.P.
DC9 diecast model. The vertical stabilizer, the tail fin, it's missing. I got to get it glued back on.
Top tier cookies, best cookies.
Oh yeah, the food itself, even like, you know, when they were serving actual meals, like when I was a kid, was really good too. But yeah, the cookies, man. R.I.P. Anyway, basketball.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about basketball. So it's been a couple of weeks since we last recorded, so I'm going to quickly run through all the games that everyone missed. Bucks won 142-129 against the Washington Wizards. I don't remember if we talked about that game or not, but oh no, we did. The Bucks unfortunately fell short against the Boston Celtics. That was the big game when we last recorded. They lost 119-116, then went back to the in-season tournament and played the Washington Wizards again. They won 131-128. Played the Portland Trailblazers. We'll dive into it more, I'm sure, but they won 108-102. Anyone that watched that game and saw the score, I was as shocked as you are. Then they turned around, played the Heat, beat them 131-124. Played the Chicago Bulls and lost 113-120 in overtime. And then last night, on Saturday night, they beat the Atlanta Hawks 132-121. So we've had a lot of games. I was going to say, Riley, what is the biggest thing you've taken away from the past couple weeks of these games?
The biggest thing I took away is we have all the makings of a 500 team, except we have so much individual talent that it works out. And what I mean by that is the sense that I seem to get that there's not a ton of coherence to what they're trying to run. I think you can tell on the offensive end that they're running more set plays than they would have under Budenholzer. I think Bud set things up where you have your 5 boxes, you have your principles, you play to that, and everybody knows plays random. Everybody knows we do 80% of the plays are just kind of guys freestyling out there. It's not like reduced down to 20%. I think Griffin does allow guys to make decisions out there a lot, but I wonder where some of the more coherent principles are on offense. Like there's just long stretches against the Bulls very earlier this season against the Hawks, and even against some other opponents where Dame is he just disappears. He doesn't get the ball that much. It seems a little my turny, your turny, maybe not to like a crazy extent, but that balance is still being worked on. And you kind of wonder when the click is going to happen. And then on defense, I mean, we have an idea, but it's a bad idea. We're 21st in the league defensive rating wise. We're at 20 games now. I don't see us suddenly switching things around and going on a tear to lift up into even like the top third or top half of the league defensively. So we will win a lot of games because we are that talented, and we're going to hang around in the fourth quarter, and we have one of the best fourth quarter players ever. So we're going to win a lot of these games, but I think the way that we're approaching games, the way that we approach opponents, and just the lack of structure around what they're trying to do, whatever the principles are, we have the makings of a 500 team. We just happen to have really good players to make up for it.
The thing I've been saying a lot about this current Bucks team is less than the sum of its parts. That's just the case right now. Obviously, there's some mitigating circumstances in that, like a rookie head coach, maybe some injuries. But yeah, I think that's another way of saying exactly what you just said, Riley. Offensively, though, I see more progress there. Like last night against the Hawks, 33 assists, season high. I think there's still obviously the problem that people are starting to discuss more of just the lack of Dame and Giannis pick and rolls. And I guess I'll be curious to hear what you guys think. I mean, the Zach Lowe, whenever he's talking about the Bucks, is just saying, well, they're only running 11 or so of those a game. Like, this is how much they did it last night, or maybe 9 or something. And reverse pick and rolls where Giannis is the ball handler, and that can result in maybe a good switch. The last time I heard it was like 9 times the whole season. But even beyond that, like, how about some of that action with Brook Lopez? We see it sometimes. I mean, I don't know if I get maybe not wanting to spam it, but also, it does seem like it would be a good way to generate offense. I don't think they were doing tons of it last night necessarily, but they were moving the ball a lot better. They were turning it over a little bit, not as much as they did on Thursday night. But as far as coherence goes, I see it more offensively than anything. And I think that probably just has to do more with guys becoming more comfortable with each other and Chris Middleton playing more. Like, Middleton is, I think, actually a pretty significant glue to how the offense runs. It just, like, his on-off numbers on offense are very good right now. And Giannis and Dame lineups, like that 2-man combination, I haven't checked it lately, but it was below it was below the waterline for a little bit there.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think Chris is an important part of the offensive fabric, but I do think also as Dame and Giannis get a little bit more comfortable with each other, and as maybe Giannis allows himself to take a back seat at other points of the game, and like we saw on Thursday, Dame will certainly take a back seat, maybe too much of a back seat to Giannis. But that can sometimes result in a lot of good ball movement. I think it did the last 2 games. I mean, Dame did have 13 assists on Thursday night. And like I said, season high 33 assists last night. So yeah, I do see more coherence there defensively. Yeah. Work in progress is probably the best thing I can say about it.
Well, and I was going to say, and we'll kind of segue to your point, Van, but I feel like the offense does enough because, one, it's significantly boosting its clutch stats. I think they've had 12, according to NBAstats.com, like 12 of their 20 games, they have been in crunch time in the clutch. So that's significantly too much, in my opinion. But at the same time, their offensive rating is second in the league, only behind the Pacers, who are, speaking of an offensive juggernaut, that is a team right there. And I think in terms of the offense, this is probably a better thing because we've always been saying the reason why the Bucks have struggled in the postseason the last couple of years is because their offense seems to turn into a complete pumpkin when it matters most. So it is encouraging at the very least that, yes, despite all the struggles defensively, the team's offense is as good as advertised. And that's one of the things I would have been more concerned about if the offense was bad with having Dame and Giannis and the offense was average. That would be more concerning. The defense, we kind of expected there was going to be a drop-off just because you go from Drew Holiday down to Damian Lillard, and then Malik Beasley and Grayson Allen both have some positives about them, but they also had negatives. And I saw someone tweet, and I don't remember, but I think the biggest difference is the Bucks have always had a good point of attack guard, whether it was Eric Bledsoe, whether it was Javon Carter, whether it was Drew Holiday, and now you don't have that, and how much of not having that is affecting the trickle down of everything else. And I think that's still true. So what is Adrian Griffin going to do to try and counteract it? Because I think that's the bigger fix. Obviously, having Brook go more in a drop is very helpful, but none of it matters because we've had a point guard that can at least make sure they don't get blown up on the screen every single time one is set. And is that something that's going to get fixed? I don't know. But at the same time, offensively, everyone, and it's not just, it's like Dame and Giannis do what they need to at various points. Chris in this limited role is excelling. This is probably the best way to use Chris, especially when it gets closer to the end of the game. Jay Crowder, when he was healthy, he was hitting shots. Malik Beasley is hitting shots. Brook Lopez will hit it when it matters.
39 points.
Like Bobby Portis will give
last week.
I was going to say, Bobby Portis will give you a great first quarter a solid second quarter, and then nothing happens in the third, and maybe the fourth he'll show up. We don't know, but you're getting more contributions from other guys as well, and that's still not including Pat Connaughton hopefully turning around. That's hoping that Marjan is a little bit more consistent. That's hoping that Andre Jackson Jr. starts to pick it up. That's hoping AJ Green gets more playing time. So with all of those things with the offense, I think it's good that it is doing this well despite not completely figuring it out.
Here's my question real quick on the offense before we switch over to Van's point. Is there going to be a point at which we can just say that Giannis is not a pick and roll big man? And do we switch to that? I think the early vibes that I'm getting, it's a lot like Giannis. Oh, he's going to develop this low post game bag, which he has to some extent. And I think he will develop a better understanding of what it means to be a big man in a pick and roll. But I think there's a very real possibility that he just never really adds it as something that he wants to primarily do or excels at. And that's an interesting question. I think it matters less in a world with Brook Lopez on the team because Brook can function in that. And he sets some hella screens is the way the kids will put it. I mean, he can do it in the way that nobody else on the roster can, both because physically and he knows how to do it and operate in that space. So I'm not saying it's something to worry about a lot, but when Van brings up Zach Lowe is looking at these numbers, maybe that's the wrong thing to be looking at. Yes, the obvious assumption is you put these two together, put them next to each other, run spam pick and roll. It's worked with Chris to a certain extent, but even then, they're not doing it every single play. They'll sometimes, if they get in a groove, they'll run to it a couple of times. But it's just something I wonder about is, are we putting Giannis into a frame that he's just not going to ever really competently fit?
Look,
I disagree with that. Yeah.
I was going to say, for all of Bud has flaws. Bud is not dumb enough to not think, let me try and make Giannis more of a role guy. Adrian Griffin has his struggles, but I'm not thinking these coaches are just simply deciding, you know what? Nah, this guy can't do it. I just think it's one of those where Giannis has not developed it. I don't expect him to fully develop it. It's one of those where you use it in pinches, but it's not going to be an everyday thing. Like, this is where, when it gets to clutch time, that's when you probably should start running it. But I'm not expecting that, expecting him to be an efficient role man to be a part of his game right now. Maybe as he gets older, that'll change when his athleticism starts waning, and it's not a bad thing. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I think we're kind of forgetting. I mean, the problem here is, for one, it's screening, right? It's not that it's just the way he's setting screens.
I was gonna say, when was the last time you saw Giannis really lay a screen on somebody?
He doesn't set a hard screen ever. He slips a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, how well has that worked with Chris Middleton for years?
Mm-hmm.
It was
I agree.
Key component to their offense in the 2021 title run. I don't think at all he's I think he's a good role man. I think he's been a good role man and he'll remain a good role man. But he's never done it he's never been a part of a really good pick and roll with a guard. I mean, the lead guards he's played with in his career are not pick and roll maestros. They just aren't. I mean, Drew Holiday was never running screen action with Giannis. I can't remember it happening. I don't recall Bledsoe really doing it much either. I mean, they had arguably as good of a better pick and roll ball handler in Chris Middleton, always on the team. So they just used that. I mean, I don't remember which game it was. But maybe it was it the Miami game, or was it a little further back? They basically won it just by going to Giannis pick and rolls repeatedly in the fourth quarter.
Philly. I know that happened in the Philly game. I know there was a strip in the Philadelphia game where it was just all right, spam
it wasn't that far back. It wasn't that far back.
I just remember that game in particular because it was this coach really knows what he's doing. Just going, hey, let's just run this play over and over, and no one's going to stop it.
It still works. I mean,
yeah.
And it's just a matter of, I think, that Giannis, when you're running pick and roll with a 6'8", 220-pound forward, you don't really have to set as hard of a screen on a point of attack defender as you do with a 6'1" point guard. So That's part of it. But yeah, really screening is the issue. Just like he's not even Myers Leonard out there, right?
And to a certain extent too, I don't fault him that much, because if he was to try and go out there and like really start setting screens a lot, I mean, that's physically demanding, like knee to knee contact, all sorts of crazy whatever can happen. And also, you guys are right that
he was never that big of a dude either. Like, we got to remember, like, when he came in the league, he was not. They did not teach him, hey, set hard screens. He did not have to do that. He did not have the body to do that.
6'8", 160.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm going to try and go away from like the Zach Lowe, or like trying to keep track of like how many times are they running it? Why isn't it top 10? Why isn't it top 5 instances on a nightly basis?
It's not even top 60.
Yeah, I mean, you can go as deep as you want, but I guess I'm just saying I'm not going to be too concerned about it, because the offense is that good, even when they're not doing that a whole bunch, and it is effective when it does happen. We've seen, even in the preseason games, it's like, I haven't had this much space off that one pass against the Lakers in preseason in my entire career. And I think Jay might have missed the 3 off of it or whatever, which is typical, but not for Jay, for the team. So I guess what I'm saying is I want to point it out as if anybody's still holding on to like, we're going to flip a switch and Giannis and Dame are going to start throwing 20, however much is like really high on a league basis. I don't see that happening, and I don't fault anybody for it. I still think it's effective, but it's something to keep in mind as we like evaluate the offense. It's good without that being the core, like driving everything that's happening on most possessions.
In the regular season, yeah, but I just,
we'll see
for
in the
the postseason, like when isolation becomes a bigger deal, and like when the pace of the game slows down and it's harder to generate offense, these are the things you need to do, because you're working in the half court more and more. So I do want to be seeing more of it when it comes to like a grindy, like a rock fight postseason matchup. That's what they'll need, I think. So,
but what about the defense though, Van?
Well, I was going to say, we've gone from the Bucks we're just going to use a steel chair to we're getting hit with the steel chair. So, Van, your second point.
Well,
your point, I guess, not second point, your main point.
Yeah, I mean, there are still moments of just where, I throw my hands in the air sometimes watching stuff defensively. And it's not as much like in years past where there's like an open corner 3-point shooter, although that's happening. I mean, it wasn't happening so much under Bud. They were doing really well at limiting corner threes, but above the break, this time maybe more corner threes, open corner threes they're conceding. But it's more like just guys coming in on backdoor cuts from the dunker spot along the baseline, picking up an easy dump off pass in the paint, and just having a nice, like, perfunctory dunk to just get an easy 2 points, because no one is rotating over. Maybe no one can rotate over. So those are those kind of what the fuck moments where you're just like, what's going on here? And they'll get Griffin to call a timeout at times. We were talking about point of attack defenders. Just any defender on the defense right now. I notice it most specifically with Malik Beasley, but I also notice it a bit with Chris too. I mean, they are getting beats to their sides pretty consistently. And it's almost like sometimes with Beasley, it's like, are they trying to force a particular ball handler to one side or something? Because it appears like, I mean, you could look at the way that Malik Beasley is defending a ball handler, and he's been tasked to defend ball handlers a lot this year, or just lead scorers, lead guards on other teams, which I mean, that could be partially out of necessity, but also it's just not a good idea because he's not a good defender. He's very miscast in this role, and there are better choices, I think, on the team for people to do that, like a certain rookie from UConn. But the way that, even Chris Middleton too, just like they're getting beat to the outside regularly because they're just turning their bodies and as if they're forcing them a certain way, but they're also not necessarily quick enough to keep up with them, and that will funnel things into Brooke Lopez. and then he's going to have to rotate over, and then he can't rotate back quick enough to deal with like that off ball backdoor cut that I was talking about. There are a lot of these moments that I see because there's so much attention. Either there's a lot of attention on the driver, like there might be some overhelping, or there's just a lot of ball watching. And I think there are a lot of Bucks right now who are guilty of ball watching, or it's just bad fundamentals on defense. And Griffin this week, when in the press conferences, he referred to fundamentals in the context of rebounding when I was asking him about it. But and it led me to believe, even though he wasn't specific about them, led me to believe that that's something he's addressing with the team. And we have actually seen that a bit on the court. They have gotten better as a defensive rebounding team, but defensive fundamentals, I see lacking with certain players. Giannis isn't one of them. I thought Giannis last night had some really good moments on ball, but in last night's game, it's interesting because in that third quarter, in the first and third quarter, the defense was not good.
Defense optional.
Exactly. First quarter was 42-37 in favor of the Bucks, like just a complete track meet. The third quarter, I believe it was 36-35 in favor of the Hawks. The Hawks certainly scored over 35 points.
35-32 for the Hawks in the third quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was interesting to me is, and then the fourth quarter, I believe it was like only 22 points or something that they let the Hawks have.
23 points.
Yeah. So, but I thought fundamentally in the third quarter, they looked good. The Hawks were making a lot of shots over, defenders' outstretched arms. I thought the coverages were a lot better. Then meanwhile, in the fourth quarter, they missed a lot of open shots. And there were some of these what the fuck moments by the Bucks defense that were just kind of, they were gifted misses. Maybe the Hawks, the legs get tired or whatever. But it was strange because like the process looked a lot better in the third quarter. The results were bad. And then the process did not look good at all in the fourth quarter, but the results were great. So that inconsistency is also a really weird thing. But yeah, these are just these are the main things I've noticed lately with the defense, at least in the context of, scoring, how the other team is scoring.
I feel like the WTF moments, it's more when they're doing things that are just like, why it's the over aggressive gambles. It's the
going for turnovers. Yeah.
Right. Going for the turnovers when a team inbounds the ball or during like a team's trying to bring up the court, which just leads to a fast break layup. Like those kind of things, over helping. It's just like, you got Giannis on this guy. You do not need to overhelp. There's no reason to do that. Or you have a dude holding the ball with Brook in the post. Do not come in. Do not step in and try and help, because the second you step in, that post guy is going to see it and kick it out for a three. It's kind of moments like those where it's like, why are you doing it? And I've noticed it. And it's always when the Bucks seem to, like, the Bucks will do something good for like a 2-3 minute stretch, and then they'll have a 2-3 minute stretch where they do this. And it's like, you were doing it so well like 2 minutes ago. What's going on? It's kind of, for me, I can't like notice like any particular instances like in the Hawks game, like in the fourth quarter. I didn't notice it as much. It's just more like Milwaukee seems to get it, and they seem to figure it out and go with the defensive plan, and then they revert back to old habits. And I think most of the time it happens when they shift from kind of like a more aggressive back to a zone, or like when they're leaving zone defense and going back into the aggressive defense. It kind of seems like they're overcorrecting when they kind of go from that a little bit more conservative aspect to the over aggressive.
They're switching basically everything right now. I think it's a little, I would actually like to see a little less switching. I mean, it leads to mismatches, of course. That wouldn't have been as big a deal on if your lineup was, let's say, a younger Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, Dante DiVincenzo, et cetera, Drew Holiday, of course. But right now, it's causing a fair bit of mismatches. But the Bucks don't have really any guards who can go over screens right now. And while I think that was the tendency under Bud, always to go over a screen, but they're just switching every screen, and sometimes that results in something good. Oh, you get switched on to Giannis. All right. Other times, guys start licking their chops.
Campaign
Yeah.
versus a 7-footer in the paint.
Exactly.
Like,
There's
all
some
right,
barbecue chicken right in front of them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like I would. Yeah, it's too over. It's over aggressive with the switching at times, I think. And like to the point about turnovers, I mean, yeah, they're going for so many turnovers that they really have no business going for. I saw it. There was that famous play. Oh, what game was it? Early in the season where Dame Lillard is going for the ball on an upcourt pass. They really had no business going for. I think it was the Toronto game, that blowout.
Mm-hmm.
But like I believe they're one of the top 5 teams in the league in deflections right now. But their turnover rate is bottom 5. I mean, it's just not effective. This like aggressive style of defense at generating turnovers, which is the point of doing it, right?
But were they top 10 in generating turnovers though? Like, right. I mean, the defense was obviously fucking horrible, but was that a pretty noticeable shift? Because to me, it felt like we've seen a shift where they're trying to gamble for that less. I mean, they still are, but they were really going all out for it. And I believe they, for a brief minute, I mean, it was super small sample size start of the season.
Maybe before that
like,
Knicks game.
Yeah. And then they
before the
switched.
polite mutiny.
Yeah. Yeah. A coach for the old players coach meeting. I think it is promise in that we've seen some dialing back on, say, as you guys are saying, gambling for those turnovers. We still do occasionally, but that was like they were really going for it, and that was obviously killing them. So we switched that, which is good. The truth is, the personnel are both like incapable of doing it, and also just they don't. Like, it just doesn't seem like it's clicking into place. And that's a classic. I mean, you could tell it most obviously with the switches, how ill-timed, or like the switch. And then, okay, the offense gives you a second to try and like, okay, let's switch back to get somebody more logical onto this guy. It just happens a few beats too late. It usually that, they don't die off of that every single time, but like, okay, campaign is out on the perimeter. It's a big man. Okay, we have a second here. Let's try and switch it with Bobby to get Bobby on the big. So they'll like get there, but it takes them a little too long, which is a problem. It's like not only the switch bad, actively trying to decide when to do it and keeping contact with whoever the guy you're switching onto, but then when the offense gets settled down again and then having to like reconstruct from there, they've also kind of been iffy when opportunities have presented themselves. And we've talked about it ad nauseum, and Kyle has. We've talked about it on the podcast, on the site, everywhere. There's only so far you can do with Dame and Malik as your guards, and campaign as well. Like all three of the guys, let's just be honest, there's limitations to what we can do. So it's exposed, especially because the switch is not as crisp as it was with much better personnel and a much better lead defensive guard in Drew Holiday, which is why it seems so much more stark and so much more noticeable that it does not function at all in the same way, unfortunately.
So one of the things I noticed, and I just looked it up, when you were talking about like dialing things back and kind of the adjustment, in the 3 games in October, Milwaukee averaged 9 steals a game. And then in the like 16 games in November, it was down to 7.1. Yeah. So they did get less aggressive in that aspect. I didn't check to see like how many turnovers were going to be generated.
Yeah.
And then
they were top
yesterday
10.
they got 5
Riley.
steals.
Okay. Yeah,
they were top 10 in turnover rate after 4 games.
So and you could tell with the way they were playing, and I think they became very clear, very like right away. And so the defense's credit,
it's film. Teams are going to get film.
Teams are going to get film, and we have like. The defensive rating is stuck at 21st right now. And as I said at the start, we're not going to see some sort of renaissance, but it has improved off of literally the bottom of the league, like historically bad. So there's that, but they've
played
fundamentally
all these bottom 10 offenses in the last week or two. They've played some really bad offenses. So I'd say that
they've made those bad offenses look good though.
I mean, well, like
we gave the Wizards their best scoring nights of the entire season.
Twice
in the same
the Wizards aren't a bad offense.
Zach LaVine. They let a Bulls team without Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan score 120. Granted, there was overtime, but they let them score 120. They let the Portland Trailblazers look like world beaters for 3 quarters.
They scored 68 points in the first half, 36 in the second half. Was it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I would say it's been a pretty average effort defensively against all these teams, just like with how bad some of them are. And then the real high caliber offenses like Atlanta, I and I guess like I mean even in Boston, of course, too. There was nothing in the defensive efforts there that really like I would say you necessarily are a feather in their cap, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Boston was a little bit more respectable. It was
In the end, yeah.
The thing with Boston was they just couldn't miss, which is a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Boston
Yeah,
simply
that's
could not miss from three. It wasn't
Bucks
lack of
have a
effort. It
Boston
wasn't lack of
problem.
execution. Yeah. It's just it always seems I don't know what to do against that. But I don't think it was like lack of effort or execution from Milwaukee in that particular game.
Yeah, it might not have been. I think they I guess like if you're looking at like just how teams like Boston, especially since we go back game 6 of the second round in 2022, it's basically been all Boston in this series, right? And they are shooting exceptionally well. I mean, they're a very good shooting team against the Bucks. But in general, but against the Bucks, they become even better. This is a pattern now. This isn't a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah.
No. And again, I don't know what that issue is, but that game at least, I don't think that was a Milwaukee simply did not execute what was there, or there was a lack of effort. I don't know what the problem is, but it's not as though it's not like other games where it's like these guys just don't give a shit.
There's definitely moments where they don't have that dog in them. Yeah.
We play super tight against Boston. Like the same thing in Boston game. So Boston hit every single shot, and then like we could not for the life of us get a lot of like good looks to fall. It's like, I think there's just like at this point a general tightness around a lot of the main guys that play against Boston. I think Boston, it's stupid to be like momentum, mind games, like whoever, but like as Van just said, I mean, Boston has pretty much owned the series between either we eke out the close victory or we get walloped on for the most part. So
eke out a close victory versus their C team.
Yeah.
I don't think Giannis has shot, I mean, over 50% from the field in any matchup since 2022 playoffs, and
Al Horford can't keep getting away with this, damn it.
That playoff run, and no Grant Williams anymore. But that playoff run, like that series, he was outrageously good. That was like peak Giannis, maybe in like, and since then against Boston, he's looked a lot more mortal. So I don't know. The Boston stuff is challenging. But you're right. People do play really tight against them.
Yeah.
And
Kyle, sorry.
Oh, like the stuff about like them not having that dog in them. You even see it last night. I remember there was a possession where Chris Middleton's like bringing up the court, and all 4 starters, or all 4, I think it was all the starters, all 4 of them are still in the backcourt. Like they just are trotting up, and it's not like Brook Lopez does that. He's the trailing guy, and he gets that that trailing 3 a lot. But Giannis and everyone was doing it. It's strange. It's really strange sometimes.
Old men gonna old men on a basketball court in November.
Giannis isn't old, right? I think he's just tired sometimes.
Speaking of starters, Kyle, what about what did you learn over the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, mine's not that deep or anything, in my opinion. It's just one of those. I've seen a lot of discourse on it on Twitter, but people are asking if Malik Beasley should really be the 5th starter, and I think he is perfectly fine. I'm emphasizing the perfectly fine. I don't know what you're expecting out of a 5th starter. If you're expecting, like, we're trying to have this guy be a superstar. You already have Giannis. You already have Dame. You already have Chris, and you already have Brook. The 5th guy just needs to be good at something, whether he is a defensive stopper, whether he is a guy that can just hit shots. I just need him to be good at something. And Malik Beasley is good at shooting the basketball. When Milwaukee is winning, Malik Beasley shooting 45.8% from 3. Even when Milwaukee is losing games, he is shooting 43.5. Like, this is a guy that is doing really, really well. He's 5th on the team in points per game. same amount as Chris Middleton. Weirdly enough, I don't understand how that worked, but same amount of points as Chris Middleton, slightly above Bobby, shooting the best out of the team. And he's doing it at like taking 6 threes a game. Granted, the Chicago Bulls one definitely bumped up the attempted rate, shooting 15 threes. That might be a little excessive. I'll admit that, but going 5 of 15 is not bad. So I don't know why. Like, I don't know what people are expecting. Yes, his defense is not good, but unless you're trying to make a complete shift in which the defense has to be better, then yeah, go ahead, put Andre Jackson Jr. or Jay Crowder in there when he's healthy. Okay. But I don't know how you look at Malik Beasley, and he seems to be hitting 3. He's shooting really well. And a lot of these times, and I said it a couple weeks ago, when he gets hot, it just supercharges the Bucks offense. And I have no problem with it. So I don't know why there needs to be this giant push that we need to have a different starter than Malik Beasley when he is doing exactly what is asked of him.
I think it has to do with the specter of the playoffs. As a regular season starter, yeah. I mean, and to be clear, I think there's absolutely a place for him in the rotation and in the playoff rotation too. But I think like you can maybe start him in the playoffs, but I with the defensive limitations of this current team on the perimeter, I do not trust Malik Beasley in the closing lineup. I just won't do it. And maybe people are kind of meshing that in with the starting role because you figure your starters are usually playing at the end of games. And whoever is going to be starting in the playoffs is going to be finishing games, which doesn't always happen. Like,
right.
Look at Manu Ginobili or whoever. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Bucks do need some help defensively, especially on the perimeter. And I like starting Malik Beasley is one thing in the playoffs. Letting him close close games, that's another. And the Bucks, like I'm going back to the Boston one, they got off to a really poor start against Boston, and that's happened like every time they've played them since like that game 7 of that series. They just got off to bad starts against that team because they come out tight, right? But I don't think you can have that in the postseason. You probably need to set the tone a little bit better right away defensely. And I don't know if Malik Beasley
I guess the biggest thing for me is just more, okay, if you don't want to start Malik Beasley in the playoffs, that's fine. But who do you trust to start ahead of Malik Beasley?
No one right now. That's the problem.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, it's perfectly fine. Like Jay Crowder's the only one that I'll even consider. And Jay Crowder is 2 of 10, 0 from 5, 3, getting cooked by Jason Tatum game away from me wanting him to play in Malta. Okay.
I shouldn't say that. Like, I shouldn't say that there's no one. Like, I mean, Crowder. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna see with Crowder. Connaughton, it's been a really rough season for him to offensively with his shot.
I'm not starting Pat Connaughton.
He's the only.
Pat Connaughton, I'm not starting him.
He's the only one who is. He's the only perimeter player I'd say who at least the experienced perimeter player. Like, so discounting Andre Jackson Jr., he's the only one who I would even say is an average defender. There's just nothing else out there. I think even like Beauchamp, I mean, he could get there even this season, but he's not there right now.
The biggest issue with Beasley is the defense, but the other thing is I can envision the world where he goes rogue. He says, fuck it, I'm getting these 15 shots and I do not care what it's going to take. And sometimes it'll, like Kyle said, it'll go and you'll be like, man, this was one of the greatest signings ever. And then the game after I'd be like, I want to never see this guy play again. So I would just be a little concerned about how the offensive pecking order would work itself out with if Malik is like, it's Malik Beasley time, which is Malik Beasley's approach right now, which is totally fine. But
I wouldn't go that far. I think he has a pretty good idea of his role offensively on this team, and I think he is
shots up
well.
Right.
Yeah,
get shots up, make shots,
get shots up, fake shots. Yeah. He's totally fine regular season. I'd be very interested if he ever needs some rest or whatever, if there is ever a moment, because at this point I don't see what the moment's going to be that switches it to get Malik out of the barring an injury. I think he's just going to be the penciled in fifth starter
For now, yeah.
or no for again, unless something really collapses. I think people just got to be okay with that.
Yeah, unless something collapses or someone takes a giant leap.
Yeah,
So
or a trade.
Or a trade, sure.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for that. We can move on. We have for Buck the host. We didn't have anything. I guess we can talk about this in-season tournament. It's been going on now for the group stage is complete. The Bucks are in the quarterfinal. They play the Knicks. Any general thought? I do have thoughts on it, but any general thoughts on the in-season tournament? Now that we're kind of in it now, it's not just this concept.
I'm clearing out for Van because he said he's gotten personal breakdown. So what's our path to the title here, Van? Where am I playing? Who am I playing? What's the give me in as succinct
What am I playing
as you can? Yeah, when do we play?
All right, so they're playing in Milwaukee on Tuesday night versus the Knicks.
Okay.
If they win that game, they will be going to Las Vegas and playing on Thursday night. Who they will be playing is the winner of the Celtics Pacers game.
Okay.
Now, so that would be the in-season tournament semifinal. If they manage, whoever wins that game will play in the final next Saturday night in Las Vegas. The wacky stuff happens when we think about losing. If the Bucks lose on Tuesday night, they will play the loser of the Boston or Pacers matchup. So either way, next week you're getting a fifth game of the year versus either Indiana or Boston. If the Bucks lose and the Pacers lose, the Bucks will be hosting them next Friday night at Fiserv Forum. If the Bucks lose and the Celtics lose, the Celtics will be hosting them next Friday night in Boston. The in-season tournament games are nationally televised. No local telecast, but if they are playing next Friday night with all the other non-in-season tournament folks, that is going to be carried on Bally Sports, I understand. So that's what I know.
That's pretty good. That was a good breakdown. I think I have a grasp on what's
the thing that doesn't make sense is why the Bucks have to go to Boston if both teams lose. I don't understand that.
I don't know why that is. I can't tell you. Eric Name called this. I think this is very apt. Adam Silver's passion project.
It's true.
I've had a lot of talk with people about this. Like and casual fans have said this to me too. Like, what is the benefit of this for fans? Like, what are fans getting out of this? Like, where's the pride or the prestige in winning this? I think that's ultimately what you're going for. Like when you're rooting for a team, like that's why we root for people to win championships. Like a team doesn't get exactly. When you're crowned, I mean, teams get playoff bonuses. So it's kind of the same thing, but when teams win, even when you make the NBA finals, you got some pretty serious bragging rights over other fan bases. In this situation, I don't see what what's in it for people in that regard, because I think that's a lot of why you're a fan of a particular team and why you continue being a fan of a particular team, because like you can have pride in what they've accomplished.
I actually am the opposite. I've actually gotten more into the in-season tournament as it's gone on, because I think when it comes down to it, there's still something to play for. And I think the biggest difference for me is point differential matters. So just because
players aren't liking that, though.
Then I don't care. This is for me. Adam Silver's doing this for me to give a shit about the tournament, and it is
the integrity of the game.
Run up the floor.
Steve Kerr and Josh Hart.
I don't care about your unwritten. Yeah. I don't care. When it got to those final group stage games and it was like, oh, this team needs to win by X amount of points. Like the reason the Celtics are even at this point is because they needed to blow out the Chicago Bulls.
The score.
Eddie Me, love that. Yeah. So I am actually the opposite, where it's like, all right, I am now more invested because you add this added competition, and now when these games start mattering, and I think it'll be a lot different when you get to you've made it this far now. Like now that you're in the quarterfinal, you want to win the whole thing. You want to go beat the Knicks, get revenge against the Celtics, or try and put an upstart Pacers in their place, be the East representative, and then you take on the Lakers, beat LeBron. That'd be hilarious. You take on the Suns. That's going to be a super team. Suns are going to want revenge. That's going to be cool. Or you get the Kings and Pelicans, two young teams. At least they play a style. It's going to be exciting to see a matchup where it matters. And, if fans decide to travel, it's in Vegas. Who knows what's going to happen? I think for me, I've actually been more invested in this as it's gone along because now the incentive is getting bigger and bigger. And again, teams want to just run up the score because they know they have to get the point differential. I'm all for it.
Well, that's not happening anymore. That was a group stage thing.
No, but that's what I was saying. Like the group stage,
Yeah.
those last group stage games, that was fun to watch teams just intentionally run up a score where if it was a regular season game, they would have mailed it in like 5 minutes ago.
The Bucks did it too against Charlotte a couple weeks ago. I watching that didn't find it any more compelling, honestly. I guess I'm gonna disagree with you there, Kyle. Like I don't think that Boston or LA is gonna, or Phoenix, like I don't think they're gonna care if they lose this tournament. I don't think the Bucks will either.
I disagree. I feel like they say they won't care, but deep down, when you get this far, now it's going to be a well shit.
I don't know. This isn't the playoffs. This isn't series.
The Celtics and they lose, they will care.
Yeah, they'll care about it, but they'll care about it just like any other regular season game. Yeah. I don't think it. I just like when I don't think it's like. I don't think players are necessarily going to be taking a loss as hard in this tournament as they will like, oh, you go down 3-2. Like they're not taking it that hard. I don't think they care that much.
My only thoughts are this. I hope we face the Celtics and I hope we beat them just because we need every single little bit of mental edge. So it's like, oh, we beat the Celtics in an elimination game. Yeah, it was in December, and in Vegas, but whatever it takes, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get any sort of edge. So I want to see
elimination.
Technically the truth.
That was really good. That was really good.
Win is a win. In-season tournament victory is an in-season. It is still a victory.
I want to see that.
Another regular season victory to me. I don't know.
I want to see that. And then I also, here's what Adam Silver needs to do to give some stakes. He needs to say the league is going to pay for some stupid parade or something. Incentivize. Are you guys going to, if we win the cup, and I'm calling it the cup, let's just say, if we win the cup, will you be there downtown Milwaukee? Will you be at General Mitchell to greet the team when they land? Yes or no?
If the Minnesota Timberwolves or the New Orleans Pelicans win this tournament and they
the city's parade, not standing.
They are gonna get roasted like you've never seen before. If they raise a banner too, it's gonna get roasted.
Do all those things.
Lean all. Right, that's the thing though. You gotta lean in. It's so stupid. You gotta have like a.
Are
stupid
fans
parade.
Gonna buy T-shirts that say
NBA
Cup champion?
Yes, I would buy one. If the Bucks were, I'd buy one.
Will fans buy these blue and neon green shirts they're producing?
It's going to be that color. It's definitely going to be that color.
Yeah, they're going to.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think this is also like the soccer fan in me knowing like there always is that in-season tournament, and when you get far enough, you want to win it at this point. And I think that's why I'm also more invested, because it's like now I'm in soccer brain. We've made it this far. If you get knocked out early, it doesn't matter. When you get this far, you want to win.
With soccer, I mean, people compare it a lot to soccer, like the in-season tournaments they have there.
It's not that.
It's not like it's not the Champions League. You're not playing teams from other leagues. I mean, I think that would be interesting if like this was a tournament going on against like other leagues. Like, what if it was like CONCACAF where you're playing the Canadian Premier League teams and the I forget what the acronym is for the Mexican league, the La Liga Nacional.
Liga
MX.
Yeah. It's LN.
I don't know what the basketball one is, but
yeah, no, I'm talking about basketball. But what about the one in the Bundesliga has where the second division is playing the what's it called again?
The Pokal.
Yeah, Pokal. I mean, how about that? Like, I mean, the G League is obviously like that doesn't have those teams don't have the prestige that like a second division team in in Germany does. But that would be a lot more interesting to me if you're like getting the Maine Celtics or the Sioux Falls Skyforce involved in this, and that would be a lot more like a soccer tournament.
We need to stop smothering Ice Cube and give him his moment. Let's get the big three teams into the mix. Let's go. Let's stop messing around.
Dude, that's actually
it'll never
3-on-3 in season tournament.
They could, I mean, they should. What they should do is they should design some more stuff around like a longer All-Star break or something. Like I don't know. It's hard logistically.
But what if the in-season tournament was 3-on-3? Like every team got to pick 3 players, or like they were selected by some other message.
Pick 3 players, but they cannot be an all-star or all NBA.
Yeah,
player.
like what if you apply
Girls AJ Green and Ty Washington out there? Let's go.
Exactly, like
and those guys have made so many final scores look respectable, so they deserve a moment in this for sure. No, I agree. Sure. I'm on board with
those new rules that about the like who can rest and who can't. You know, if you've made an all-star team and all NBA team, none of those guys are eligible. And we have a 3-on-3 in-season tournament. You've got the Bucks with, like, AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr. That's compelling to me. That's compelling. I think it's interesting. I probably not going to do as much for the casual fan, but make it 3-on-3. I don't know. I think 3-on-3 if you have it with the stars, like that would be something too. Like who are the Bucks? With the Bucks, you pick the big 3. The Celtics have some decisions to make, and then even you look at maybe there are crappy teams who actually can put together a decent big 3. Like for example, like Washington, if they trotted out, let's say,
no, don't say it.
No, seriously, like think about this: like Kyle Kuzma, Tyus Jones, and God, I can't even remember who's on that.
That's fine. I was going to say, if you put Jordan Poole out there, that's going to be
disaster. Yeah, Jordan Poole. It has to be Jordan Poole. No. So those 3 guys.
Oh God.
But those 3 guys, like watching, like that, I could see that them upsetting like a more established big like that. Dude, that
I
team,
don't because all you're doing is giving Jordan Poole more.
Dude, I think those 3 could beat Dame, Giannis, and Chris. Just like they'll run up the score, but I think that like if you match up those 3-on-3 teams 100 times, like that Wizards trio is not gonna lose too many of them. That's my opinion.
Here's the bottom line with the tournament.
We're way out of
if we win the cup, I'm half seriously, but mostly joking, going to lord it over everybody on the internet. So that's all I care about. And if
I will buy
many people, Adam Silver, write that down. Adam, I know you listened. You got one sale if you can swing the refs in our favor. And obviously, if we lose, then I pretend that this never happened, and Adam Silver's an idiot. So those
Kyle,
are the two options.
If they win and you get one of those,
if you don't have
it on this podcast.
Merch,
if you're not,
I will wear it on it. Yeah. I will wear it.
Good.
If they win, I will buy it and wear it the first episode after I get it.
There you go. Yeah.
I promise.
Hat and shirt. Crowned NBA Cup champions.
I don't know if I'll wear the hat. I'll show the hat. I don't know if I'll be able to wear it just because of all the
your 2023-2024 Milwaukee Bucks.
All right. I think we're good on that. Let's go over to our miscellaneous stuff. So, Riley, it seems like you got rapid fire. At least it says you have it.
Yes, I do.
All
okay. Right. So we'll start with one non-basketball question, and then we'll transition to a couple basketball ones. First one, this coming Friday, I have a Secret Santa / cookie exchange with friends coming up. I've never participated in a cookie exchange before. Apparently, each couple brings a dozen cookies, and then we just kind of like everybody gets to take home cookies that other people. So put yourself in my shoes. What cookie are you bringing to the event? And then which one would you be most happy taking home?
I've done this kind of thing before, like a big cookie party where you take home. The answer for take home is always the haystacks. I love those haystacks. Yeah, they're just like, it's a bunch of pretzels, with some marshmallow and some chocolate going all over them.
Yeah. Love it.
I guess that'll be my answer for both. Either you bring those and you make some for yourself to keep at home, or you take a lot of those.
Okay.
I would make peanut butter cookies, and I would want to come back with Snickerdoodle.
Snickerdoodle, that's a hot take. It's not wrong though. Snickerdoodle's okay. We can say it's okay.
It's
very good.
It's top 3.
Wow. I'm very interested in what my friends are going to bring to this event. So I'll report back next week. All right. How much personal blame, do you put on that Instagram shot doctor for breaking Bobby Portis' 3-point percentage? So I'll just
I don't know what you're talking about.
2022, well, 2022 he shot 23, 37% 3. So far this season, 29.4 on fewer attempts as well. The backstory being, I believe it was 2 summers ago. I can't remember what the hell this guy's name is, but he's like this Instagram shot doctor who is working. He's a guy who works on people's shot who has a prolific Instagram profile. And he worked with Grayson Allen and Bobby. Those are the 2 that I know for sure. He might have had a couple other Bucks guys. I think it's Lethal Shooter, I believe, is the Instagram. Don't dox the guy, but I believe that is his Instagram. How much personal blame does he take for breaking Bobby's 3-point shot and percentage?
I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this guy, so I can't give you an answer.
80%.
Although Portis was decent last year. He shot like 37% last year. So.
Yes. Yeah.
If you worked with him 2 years ago, then I don't know. If you worked with him this summer, then maybe he gets some blame.
I saw somebody, the reason why Lethal Shooter came to mind is I was scrolling the other day and I saw somebody post that Lethal Shooter won't see heaven, which I thought was that's a little much. So shout out to you, Lethal Shooter. Love your work. Okay, here we go. Is Chuma Okeke the answer?
Who?
No, but they can still trade for him. That would be interesting.
Who? No, that's my answer. Yes.
Okay.
Right
now, you can look up a report on brewhoop.com where one of our hosts tonight threw up a little article about that. Okay. Our team free throw rate has fallen to 7th in the league, which is still pretty good. Do you have a certain ranking that you want them to be going, like his top 5? Are you happy with that? I guess, what do you think of the free throw rate? We were leading the league for a long while, and it seems that we're dropping off a little bit. Something to keep an eye on, something you want to be a integral part of the offense. What are your thoughts on the free throw rate so far?
Yeah, I want it to be integral. 7th sounds fine. Like it just needs to be a big part of their offense in the postseason. I expect it to finish top 10. Top 5 is great.
Yeah, I don't have any qualms. If it can increase, great, but I'm not concerned because it seems as though Dame and Giannis are doing a good job at getting to the free throw line. Besides last night's game.
Besides the game in Chicago a couple of days ago.
All right, final question and rapid fire this week. Does Giannis's 3-point attempt rate registering at less than 10% for the first time in years wholly vindicate the Adrian Griffin hire for you? Because it might for me.
Yes.
Wait, say that again.
Okay, his 3-point attempt rate is less than 10%. It's been over 10%. It's been like 12, 13, 14% the past couple seasons. Does the fact that, and who knows, I don't know if it's Griffin's doing, I don't know, but the fact that Giannis is now at under 10%, does that in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, vindicate the Adrian Griffin hire?
I guess not.
Okay.
That's interesting, though. I mean, there are a lot of people who still think that's too high, and I can't blame them.
You're talking to one of them. At least. I don't know about, if it's slightly around 10, whatever. Okay.
Less than 5%, right?
Look, as I mentioned in yesterday's game, Giannis airballed that 3, and I was like, never, no more.
Oh,
no more.
The game I had a perfect angle on that airball in Chicago, which was like, I mean, it got kind of roasted on Twitter. Like, this is the worst NBA shot I've ever seen. And I just was like, I had a dead on view of it. Just was thinking, I thought it was a pass.
The fucked up part about it is like, I can put myself in Giannis's shoes and be like, damn, how cool is that? The couple of times he's made it. And when he made it against the Sixers last year, to like, or was it the Sixers or was it the Nets? I can't remember.
Well, there was
which
the
one
Nets
The Nets.
to take
That's
the
where he became the
franchise.
all-time leading.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was 2 years ago in
That
Brooklyn.
literally it couldn't have happened at a worse time for our long-term winning perspective.
I was
as
at that
fucking
game.
actually-
I was covering that game. I'll never forget that shot. Like, and just seeing it, and because
It's
they
just-
took the lead in that game. It was like with a healthy KD and healthy
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving. It was,
And it was like off of
Uh,
a totally like fucking busted play too, right?
yeah,
like,
it was
not
kind of garbage. It was kind of garbage. But that was
Uh,
the go-ahead shot, and they won that game.
yeah.
And he
and
took,
I'm sure
just-
Giannis felt awesome.
just hilarious.
so-
He took over the all-time franchise scoring record on that shot, isn't it?
People say irony is dead. It is not. Okay, that's all I got for rapid fire this week.
All right. You also got a fountain pen, it seems.
I do. It's not a pen. It's paper. It's gonna be a lot of
Okay.
paper. I do have a couple of pens on some Secret Santa lists, so fingers crossed I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks with something for that. This week, for the first time in a long time, we have a new journal to discuss. It's the Nanami Seven Seas Writer. Now, this is just comes in a little case, whatever case, the sleeve. This is Tomio River paper. Those who have listened to this segment, the 5 sickos out there who have listened to this segment for a long time know, if there is one nation that is known for having the most exceptional paper for fountain pens, it is by far Japan. There is no second place, really. There's maybe a couple American producers, but there's really only one place that has a sizable industry that still produces paper. That's where this is coming from. Tomio River, the difference primarily, I mean, you guys can kind of see from there. It's nothing crazy. I mean, this is a straightforward, it's pretty blank. There's a couple of lines in here. You're not getting this for the features. Some journals come with structures of like, here's the date, here's like a prompt, there's different things that some will throw at you. This is very minimalist. I just love the paper and the fact that in 480 pages, like this is a huge journal, it lies totally flat, which is super rare for a hardbound cover journal. Most of them have a certain sort of divot that makes it difficult to start or finish your sentences, whichever page you're on. And the really cool part about Tomio River paper is usually most paper makers treat their final product with acid. They do like an acid run over to kind of essentially firm it up, make it be able to take in and then hold on to the ink. They don't run, I believe with Tomio River, they don't do acid treatment at all. So it's a little bit more of a pure product. It really retains ink super well. It's by far the thinnest paper that I run with, and yet there's no bleed through whatsoever. So the truth, there's truth in advertising. It's still out there. Tomio River paper, if you look for it, they changed up their formula, the recipe a couple of years ago, but this seems to be just as good as it has always been. And I bought a whole bunch of Tomio River stuff, which I'll talk about over the coming weeks. But a writer journal, this is my daily writer that I use, and I'm very pleased with it. Good value for the money. I think there's just like one company in San Francisco that imports it that I bought it from. So very happy with this journal.
All right.
The paper mills and Kimberly Clark Corporation are weeping that a Wisconsin native has besmirched them.
Tell them to
If,
step the
if,
game
Wa-
up.
hey, if Wausau Paper wants to get in touch, my DMs are not open, but they can find me. They can find me.
Next thing, I mean, it's dissing Wisconsin paper isn't quite like saying, "Oh, Illinois got better beer" or something. But
Yeah,
Sorry.
no disrespect.
where's your home state pride, Riley?
Yeah, if it wasn't all just copy office paper, I'd be much happier about it. But that's what I
fair.
got this week.
All right. I have a film review. So I was on vacation during Thanksgiving. I was down in St. Croix, but there was some downtime in between going to the beach and me drinking rum. Sonic the Hedgehog is the movie I'm going with. And the reason is because Sterling has become obsessed with Sonic. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it happened, but he is obsessed. So we have watched all the Sonic shows, and we watched the first and second Sonic movie. The first one, I never saw it in theaters. I think it had, when it came out, certainly was literally months old, and I was like, I don't know if it's going on in public. And this is right before COVID and everything. It was really fun. I enjoyed the movie. I think it's one of those superhero movie, but it is something that's like, okay, I understand the plot. I understand the characters. I think it was perfectly casted. Jim Carrey, it was the best part by far, playing Dr. Robotnik. It was just a simple, fun movie. And like I said, the plot was simple. I think they did a good job at getting Sonic's personality And I think there's still some callbacks to the games as well. So it was kind of nice having that transition where it's like you can get people that are closer to our age that remember playing Sonic as a kid and watching those shows back in the day. And then it also is able to bring in new people that might not have heard about it and want to get interested, and it can bring in kids as well. So I enjoyed it. I think it was just the right amount lengthwise that it wasn't dry. It wasn't going on too long. Like it didn't feel like, oh my God, how long is this movie? It was like an hour and a half. So that is, I love a movie that can be short and simple. So I had a good time. Again, some of the humor is kind of sophomoric and lazy, but it's also probably more for children than it is for adults. So I give it a 7 out of 10. I had a good time watching it. We've rewatched it multiple times now, and I'll probably talk about the second movie later on.
Is this the movie that got clowned on with its first like reveals
Yes.
of just how
This
Sonic
was the one
looked?
that they had
Okay.
the first design, and then they had to go back and change it, and then the second design, which was much better.
Okay. Very cool. Do people need to know the background of Sonic to understand what's happening in the movie? Okay, cool. Is it an origin story
they
of
do a
Sonic, or is it?
Not necessarily. It's kind of more just explaining. They do a portion in the beginning that explains who Sonic is and how, like, what he's about. Like, it did give at least a little bit of a background of him. So it is one of those where you don't have to know because they tell you within like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie.
I did go to a taping of Colbert when I was doing my long stint in New York a couple years ago, and now I looked this up. Ben Schwartz is the guy who does his voice.
He voiced Sonic.
He was there as one of the guests, like as I guess part of the promotion for that, I believe.
Yeah, he's pretty great. Like again, it was casted pretty damn well. I will give him that. So yeah, Sonic is on Paramount Plus, so that is where you can find it.
You were intimately familiar with the location of Sonic. Do you think you'll see it 10 plus more times? Do you think double digit more?
God, yeah, Sterling's been playing it nonstop. Like,
all right, cool.
Sterling is in a Sonic the Hedgehog phase. I will probably watch it at least another 3 or 4 times in the next week.
You and Emma will be in my thoughts.
I had a Sonic phase when I was a kid. I just remember having it. I don't think it lasted very long, and I just don't remember. I don't remember anything about it. I just remember having it.
Well, Sterling doesn't realize that it's also a game. That's why I'm holding off as long as I can. So, all right, yeah, there we go. Sonic the Hedgehog, go see it. It's a fun movie for family. Van, you got your Warped Tour, so hit us.
So, it was, I think, the other weekend when the Bucks, for the first time in franchise history, had 3 30-point scores with Brooke Lopez, of all people, leading the way, and then Giannis and Dame. And Riley, in the game recap, really threw it back to my childhood by putting the a hit from 1989, the year I was born, by a group called Bananas at Large from Amherst Junction, Wisconsin. Not Amherst. I've heard of Amherst. This is Amherst Junction. An art teacher, an art and science teacher, and a piano tuner, and another junior high teacher wrote this classic, The 30-Point Buck. And I guess it got on with Dr. Demento a bunch. That's a song I remember hearing like in middle school. So, you know, it'd been around for quite a while. I didn't realize it was that old, but it reminded me of another one, which is more the focus of the Warped Tour this week. But I'm thinking about it because it's from the same era. We got the early 90s, let's say like 1989 into like 1993. Let's think about the broader trends in music at that time. We have the rise of grunge out of the hair metal of the 80s. Great. I mean, I'm a big Soundgarden, Nirvana guy. Obviously, Riley, you are too. That's kind of what's going on in rock. In hip hop is becoming more mainstream. You're starting to get into like the golden era, maybe some would say, of like it becoming like, you know, popularized and starting to get on the radio. Other, like, I don't know what's going on in country music or other popular music, but there's a small movement going on in Wisconsin around this time. It's like a kind of polka revival of some sort. And the Happy Schnapps combo were a part of this with a number of albums. Their 1991 album, Raise It, featured a song that I also remember from maybe my younger days called No, I Don't Want to Do That. And if you're of a certain age from Wisconsin, you probably know this song. Do you guys know this song? Wow. I'm surprised you don't, Riley. If you know 30 Point Buck, which that's a masterpiece. Like the lyrical content of that song is outstanding.
Yes.
The lyrical content of this particular song and like the other songs by the Happy Schnapps combo, I'm not gonna compare it to Bob Dylan or anything like that. But the lyrics, the entire lyrics of the song are just a series of questions. Questions are answered one of two ways. There's a variety of questions. It starts, do you want to go to work today? Do you want to pay some bills? Do you want to shovel snow? Do you want to do the dishes? Do you want to buy insurance? Do you want to go to Illinois? Do you want to eat sushi? Do you want to get a haircut? Do you want to go to prison? All those are answered, no, I don't want to do that. But then at the end of every verse,
a tale of two Wisconsin. You know how the people say two Americas?
Yes. This band is from Manitowoc, home of Stephen Avery. So very much like we let's call it Manticore, Manitowoc core. That's what they call it.
Yeah,
Manti. Like it is that. I stay in touch with that side of Wisconsin because I have relatives on that side. But the other questions are, so the questions that are answered the other way are, do you want to go out to a bar? Do you want to do a shot with me? And those are answered, yeah, and then it goes into a spirited polka breakdown. Oh, sorry, one of the ones I missed, Kyle. Sorry. Do you want to watch soccer? No, I don't want to do that. So
yeah, that's fair.
I mean, these are men from Wisconsin. The names are have like last names
legends.
Kruger,
Rich
Kruger, Hans Stulo, Otis Stuka O'Kersey, Kaiser Berner von Kraut. That's not his real name, I don't think, but these were the members of the Happy Schnapps combo. So there you go.
I will say I'm on their website right now. Their website is
their website's messed up.
Their website's messed up, but it is current. And I love the discography, the name of the albums. Like they could definitely have been a hardcore band. 100 Proof, Raise It, Ear Muscle with some of these album covers. And I will give a shout out to their page on their website, Alcohol of Fame. Love that. Yeah. Huge shout out and respect. So good find this week, man.
In the alcohol Hall of Fame, Toronto Mayor Rob Ford, Lindsay Lohan, Charlie Sheen. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Rob Ford.
R.I.P. to a real one. All right.
Didn't think you.
Why don't you get us out of here, Kyle? Let's wrap.
All right, we're good. So weekly prediction. The games are all going to be. So there's at least a game Tuesday against the Knicks. There is a game Thursday. Who and where we don't know, and depending on how the Bucks do, there might be a game Saturday. I'm just going to go with this. Are the Bucks going to be in-season tournament champions by the time we record on Sunday?
Nah, I don't think so. I always take the field.
Oh man,
Riley's gonna say.
I got really burned by our Celtics take, Kyle and I, and people held us accountable in the comments for those takes. So I'm going to say we are going to win it all, but I fully acknowledge that Van is the right event that take the field for sure.
I think if they have to play Indiana, they're gonna lose. Indiana is going to be highly motivated to win the in-season tournament. A young team that hasn't proven anything. That's the exact kind of team that wants to win that tournament.
I can't live in a world where we're getting stunted on by the Pacers in Vegas. I can't. Don't give me that. I can handle the Celtics. Please, not the Pacers.
The Bucks will beat the New York Knicks on Tuesday because
I think they'll beat the
will
Knicks.
not show up.
Yeah.
The Bucks will then face Boston and get revenge because Boston, even though they will
Okay.
shoot 40% from three again, Giannis will not miss like 8 layups. Then we get to the final where they take on the Phoenix Suns and they win.
Okay, great.
It's happening.
I love it.
Someone's got to be overly optimistic here, and I will gladly take that mantle. So that is all that we have for this episode. Make sure to check us out at brewhoop.com. We will have all of our weekly pieces: Monday morning media roundup, the Tuesday tracker, weekly Wednesday roundup, Thursday Van
Report
Neftier
card.
progress report. Friday is going to be the question and antlers. So we will have all of that plus game coverage plus social media stuff. So make sure to check us out. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And we will talk to you next time.